The morning light slipped gently through the half-open blinds, painting soft golden stripes across the small classroom. Lily stood by the whiteboard, her fingers clutching a marker that had long gone dry. The air smelled faintly of chalk dust and the faint sweetness of freshly sharpened pencils. Outside, children's laughter floated through the open windows. Carefree, distant, reminding her that somewhere beyond these walls, life still danced freely. But here, in this quiet corner, Lily's heart carried a weight she couldn't name. She smiled for her students. She spoke softly and she taught like her life depended on it. Maybe in a way it did, because teaching wasn't just her job. It was her anchor, the only thing steady after her world had fallen apart years ago. That's when she noticed him for the first time. Standing at the doorway after class ended, tall, composed, dressed in muted gray. His eyes, though, held something unspoken, the kind of sadness people hide behind practiced smiles. He was here to pick up his son, Ethan, a quiet boy with an old soul, one of her favorites. Their eyes met for just a moment, and something, subtle but undeniable, shifted. Before she could look away, he spoke, voice deep yet gentle. "Thank you for being patient with Ethan. He talks about you a lot." Lily smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "He's a good kid, just needs a bit of encouragement." The man nodded slowly. "You give him more than that." Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, oddly breathless. She didn't know then that this man, this quiet father, carried a story far heavier than hers. Before we dive deeper, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It amazes me how far a single story can travel. Drop your city. Let's see how wide kindness still spreads. The next day, Ethan stayed after class to finish an art project. Lily sat beside him, helping him trace the outline of a paper boat. "Do you like boats?" she asked softly. He nodded, not looking up. "Dad does. He says Mom used to love the sea." There was something fragile in his tone, something that made her chest ache. "She must have been special." "She was," Ethan whispered. "But she's gone." The silence that followed was delicate, the kind that fills every corner of a room and lingers long after words fade. That evening, when Ethan's father returned, Lily hesitated before speaking. "He's doing well," she said gently. "You're raising a kind boy." For the first time, the man smiled. "I'm trying. Some days—" "I don't know if I'm doing enough." Lily tilted her head. "No one ever does. But you're here. That counts for something." He looked at her then. Really looked. And in that gaze, Lily felt something stir. Not attraction, not yet. Something simpler. Recognition. Two souls quietly acknowledging each other's loneliness. It began with small moments after that. Polite exchanges at the classroom door. Shared smiles. Accidental eye contact that lasted a bit too long. And one chilly afternoon, when rain tapped softly against the windows, he offered her a ride home. "Please," he said. "You'll catch a cold walking." Inside his car, the silence was comfortable. The city lights blurred by like memories rushing past. Lily turned to thank him when she noticed his hands gripping the wheel too tightly. "You okay?" she asked. He hesitated, then exhaled. "It's been a long few years." She didn't press. She just nodded, understanding that pain has its own language, and sometimes silence says more than comfort ever could. When he dropped her off, she thanked him again. He smiled faintly. "You remind me?" That kindness still exists. That night, Lily lay awake replaying his words. She didn't know why they mattered, only that they did. She didn't know that the next time she saw him, everything she thought she knew about him would begin to unravel. The following week, the air outside smelled of rain-soaked earth, fresh, raw, and clean. Lily hurried through the school hallway, clutching a stack of essays close to her chest, when she noticed Ethan waiting alone by the gates. The other parents had already come and gone. He stood there, backpack drooping off one shoulder, eyes scanning the street for a familiar car that wasn't there. "Hey, champ," Lily said softly, kneeling beside him. "Is your dad running late?" Ethan nodded, voice barely above a whisper. He said he'd come, but maybe work got busy again. The worry in his tone tugged at her. She sat beside him on the bench, the street lamps flickering awake one by one as dusk deepened. 15 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. The man stepped out, rain-dampened and breathless, his usually calm face shadowed with guilt. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," he murmured, crouching to meet his son's eyes. The meeting ran over. "It's okay," Ethan interrupted. Though the tremor in his voice betrayed him, Lily watched quietly. The man turned to her, exhaling. "You must think I'm a terrible father." "Not at all," she said, shaking her head. "You showed up. That's what matters." He paused as if the words meant more than she realized. Then he smiled faintly, weary, grateful. "Thank you. Really." That night she couldn't forget the look on his face, the quiet exhaustion of someone carrying too much. Days turned into weeks. Their paths kept crossing, sometimes planned, often not. A shared coffee after a parent-teacher meeting, a conversation about books, laughter over something Ethan said. Each moment stretched just a little too long, felt just a little too real. She learned his name properly one evening. "Michael," he said simply when she finally asked. "Michael," she repeated softly, testing the sound of it. It suited him, strong yet vulnerable. He smiled. "And you're Lily, the teacher who's somehow made my son believe in himself again." Their laughter filled the space between them, easy and unguarded. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt seen. One Saturday, he invited her and a few other teachers to a small school fundraising dinner. But the others canceled last minute, leaving only Lily. When she arrived, the restaurant wasn't a school hall as she expected. It was elegant, quiet, the kind of place where the cutlery gleamed under soft lighting. "You didn't have to do this," she said, blushing slightly as he pulled out a chair for her. "I wanted to," he replied. "Ethan's happier than he's been in years. You deserve a proper thank you." As they spoke, Lily noticed small things, the way the staff greeted him respectfully, how a waiter addressed him by name, and how his card, when he paid, shimmered in a distinct platinum hue. Later that night, curiosity itched at her thoughts. Who exactly was Michael? Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. Monday morning arrived quietly. The news came in whispers at first, fragments from a colleague scrolling her phone. "Did you see this article? The CEO of Laverne Holdings just donated millions to an orphan fund. Widowed philanthropist Michael Hale." Lily froze mid-step, the name echoing like a distant bell. Her heart thudded in disbelief. Michael Hale, billionaire, widower, her breath caught. She stared at the photo in the article. That same gentle smile, those same eyes she had come to know so well. He hadn't lied. But he hadn't told her either. That afternoon, when he arrived for Ethan, Lily's voice trembled. "You could have told me," he sighed, looking genuinely remorseful. "I didn't want you to see the money. I wanted you to see me." Her gaze softened, but hurt lingered. "And now I don't know which part was real." "Everything," he said quietly. Every single word, every moment. Outside, the autumn leaves drifted down like slow-falling confessions. Inside, two hearts stood on the edge, unsure whether to close or to open wider. The silence between them after that day wasn't angry. It was uncertain, suspended like mist before rain. Michael had stopped waiting at the classroom door. Instead, the chauffeur came for Ethan. Lily tried to focus on her lessons, but every time she caught the boy's eyes, something in her chest tightened. He carried a quiet confusion she couldn't ignore. One evening, as she was locking up the classroom, she saw Ethan sitting on the steps, clutching a folded piece of paper. His small hands trembled. "Hey," she said softly, kneeling beside him. "You're still here?" He nodded. "Dad's late again." He looked down at the paper. "I made this for Mom. It's her birthday today." Lily's heart ached. "Would you like to show it to your dad when he comes?" Ethan hesitated. "I don't think he'll want to talk about her." Before Lily could respond, headlights cut through the evening fog. Michael stepped out, eyes weary but kind. "Ethan, I'm sorry." The boy interrupted, voice cracking. It's Mom's birthday. The air grew still. Michael's composure faltered for a fraction of a second. He knelt, resting his hand on Ethan's shoulder. I know, buddy. His voice softened, breaking at the edges. She'd be proud of you. Lily stood quietly nearby, witnessing a father trying so hard not to shatter in front of his son. She saw grief in its rawest form, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet endurance. When Michael finally looked up, his gaze met hers. Unspoken gratitude, deep and heavy. Thank you for being here, he murmured. It's where I'm supposed to be, she replied, and she meant it. The next week, Ethan's art project won a small award at school. Lily insisted that Michael attend the assembly. He did, arriving early, sitting in the second row, hands clasped tightly. When Ethan's name was called, Michael's expression shifted, pride lighting a face that had forgotten joy. He clapped until his palms turned red. Afterward, as they walked out, Michael turned to Lily. I don't think I've smiled like that in years, she smiled back. Then I guess Ethan's not the only one growing. He chuckled softly, the sound low and warm. Then more serious. Would you have dinner with us? Ethan would love it. Lily hesitated only for a moment. I'd like that. That night, she found herself at a beautiful townhouse, surrounded by framed memories, photos of a woman with kind eyes, laughter frozen in glass. Lily's heart tugged. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. Ethan talked about school. Michael listened, relaxed, even laughed. The sound filled the room like light. When Ethan went upstairs to bed, the silence that followed was different. Intimate. Thank you, Michael said, looking at her across the table. You've brought life back into this house. Lily smiled gently. Maybe it was already here. It just needed a reason to come out again. Their eyes met, and for the first time, neither of them looked away. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below, so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. After that evening, they began to drift into each other's orbits naturally. Coffee after school turned into quiet walks through the park. Shared glances turned into lingering moments. Neither said the words, but both felt the pull, steady, unstoppable. One day, as they watched Ethan feed ducks by the pond, Michael spoke softly. I haven't told anyone this, but after my wife passed, I didn't think I'd ever be capable of feeling again. Lily's eyes glistened. And now? He turned to her, voice barely above a whisper. Now I'm terrified I might. The confession hung between them, fragile and beautiful. The breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolias, the sky turning gold with sunset. Lily reached for his hand, hesitant, trembling, but he didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined like two threads of the same story finally meeting. For the first time in years, Michael let himself breathe. The days that followed felt softer, almost dreamlike. Lily found herself humming while arranging papers, smiling at the smallest things, a student's laughter, a message that read, Ethan's excited for class today. It wasn't just affection, it was a quiet return of color to her world. But one evening, reality intruded like a shadow stretching across light. A dark car waited outside her small apartment. When she approached, the tinted window rolled down. A woman's voice, firm yet polished, called out, Miss Lily Parker? Lily hesitated. Yes? I'm Rachel Bennett, Mr. Hale's family office. The woman's tone was professional, but her eyes were assessing. May I have a moment? Inside the cafe nearby, Rachel set down her tablet. Mr. Hale's position makes him a target of media curiosity. We monitor associations to prevent complications. Lily frowned, pulse quickening. Complications? You're a teacher. You seem kind, but the tabloids are vicious. One photograph could ruin reputations, his and yours. Lily's hands trembled around her cup. Are you saying I should stop seeing him? Rachel sighed. I'm saying this, and be careful. Billionaires don't live in ordinary worlds, and those who step too close often get burned. Her words echoed long after she left. That night, Lily sat by her window, city lights flickering below. She thought about Michael. the man who carried warmth in his eyes, not wealth in his hands. Yet suddenly everything between them felt fragile. Was she just a chapter in a story too big for her to belong in? When they met the next day, Michael noticed instantly. "Something's wrong," he said quietly. Lily forced a smile. "Just tired," but he saw through it. "What did someone say to you?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Your assistant. She thinks I'll bring trouble." Michael's jaw tightened. She had no right. "She's not wrong, though," Lily said softly. "Your world is different, and I'm just—" "Don't," he interrupted gently. "Don't say just. You've done more for me and Ethan than anyone in years. Don't let her make you small." Lily's eyes glistened. "Then promise me something, that this isn't a fantasy you'll regret later." He took her hand, his voice steady. "The only regret I'd have is not fighting for something real." Her tears broke free then, soft and unhidden. For once, she didn't hide her heart. "If that moment hits you hard, leave a— Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't." Weeks passed. Their bond grew in quiet defiance of gossip and doubt. Michael began showing up not in suits, but in simple shirts. He took Ethan to school, helped him with homework, even joined a class art fair. Lily watched him from afar, how he laughed easily now, how Ethan glowed around him. It wasn't money that healed them, it was love. But just as life began to feel normal, fate intervened. A journalist showed up at school. A camera flash followed. "Miss Parker! Is it true you're dating the widowed billionaire?" The world seemed to freeze. Children stared, teachers whispered, and Lily's breath faltered. She turned, but Michael was already there, shielding her, hand firm on her shoulder. "No comment," he said firmly, guiding her away. By the time they reached his car, her voice was shaking. "They'll ruin my job, Michael." "My reputation? Then I'll fix it," he said. "You can't fix everything with money." She cried, tears spilling. "Some things need peace, not power." He looked away, the pain in his eyes raw. "I just don't know how to protect the people I love without losing them." Lily's heart cracked open at those words. He wasn't angry, he was scared. Scared of love vanishing again, the way it had once before. She reached for his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Then maybe protecting us means trusting that love is enough this time." He didn't answer, just pulled her into his arms, holding on like the world might fall apart if he let go. Outside, the night carried their silence, heavy but sacred, two hearts fighting against the noise. The next few days were a blur of whispers and headlines. Lily's phone buzzed endlessly. Unknown numbers, reporters camping outside the school gates, colleagues pretending not to stare. Each morning she arrived early and left late, hoping to escape the murmurs that clung like static. Michael called every night. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she didn't. She wasn't angry at him, just tired of being a story. When she finally picked up, his voice was heavy with worry. "They're twisting everything, Lily. My team's handling it." "Michael," she said softly, "I don't want a team. I just want peace." There was a pause, then a fragile honesty. "You make me feel human again, Lily. Don't let them take that from us." Her breath trembled. "Then let me hide for a while. Until the noise fades." He wanted to protest, but her voice carried quiet finality. "Please," he understood. Love, he realized, sometimes meant stepping back, not to lose, but to let the other breathe. The following week, Lily found a letter slipped under her apartment door. It wasn't typed or signed formally, just handwritten in looping script. "When the world gets loud, remember this. Real love doesn't need witnesses. It only needs two hearts that refuse to forget." There was no name, only a pressed white magnolia tucked inside, the same kind that grew near Ethan's schoolyard. She held it to her chest, eyes closed. Days turned into weeks. The paparazzi faded, and the silence that followed was almost unbearable. She missed him. The way he listened, the way his voice softened when he said her name. Then, one rainy evening, as she walked home under a flickering streetlight, a familiar car pulled up. The window rolled down. "Need a ride?" Michael's smile was tired but real. She hesitated, then opened the door. They drove without words for a long while, city lights rippling across wet pavement. Finally, he broke the silence. "I kept waiting for the right time to tell you everything," he said quietly. "About her. About me. I thought protecting you meant hiding pieces of my life." Lily turned to him. "You don't have to protect me from the truth." He swallowed hard. "The truth is, I was there when she died. The accident wasn't just tragic, it was my fault. I was driving." The words hung between them, hollow and heavy. "She told me to slow down," he whispered. "We were arguing about work, and then—" Lights, brakes, silence. Lily's throat tightened. "Michael, I thought if I worked harder, gave more, helped others, maybe I'd earn forgiveness. But every time I smiled, it felt borrowed." Lily reached for his hand. "And now?" He looked at her with tears he didn't hide. "Now, when I'm with you, it feels like breathing again. But I don't know if I deserve that." Her fingers tightened around his. "We don't earn love, Michael. We heal through it." Outside, thunder rolled. Not violent, but distant, as if the storm itself had softened. "Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply." They drove until the city thinned into quiet suburbs. He parked near the waterfront, the same place he used to visit with his wife and son. The sea shimmered under a dull silver moon. "I haven't been here in years," he said, stepping out. "I thought it would hurt too much." "But maybe it's time," Lily whispered. He nodded, pulling a small photo from his pocket, his wife and Ethan smiling. He let the wind take it gently, the picture floating out over the dark water. "It's not letting go," he said. "It's just making peace." Lily's eyes glistened. She slipped her hand into his, resting her head against his shoulder. The sound of the waves filled the silence, washing over their guilt, their grief, their fragile hope. For the first time, the past didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a bridge. The night at the waterfront lingered in Lily's mind long after they left. It wasn't the kind of moment that begged for words. It simply existed, quiet and whole, like a wound that had finally stopped bleeding. Days passed more gently after that. The scandal faded, the papers moved on, and life began to breathe again. Ethan smiled more often, his drawings now filled with bright colors instead of gray skies. In the classroom, Lily would sometimes find small origami boats on her desk, his quiet thank yous, folded with love. One evening, she found Michael waiting outside after class, a hesitant smile on his face. "Ethan insisted I pick you up," he said, hands tucked into his coat pockets. She chuckled. "That sounds like something he'd do." They walked together through the dusky streets, the city humming around them. For once, there was no tension, no fear, only the rhythm of two people learning how to live again. As they reached her building, Michael paused. "I've been thinking about everything," he said quietly. The accident, the press, even Rachel's warnings. "I spent years running from guilt, hiding behind success. But you—" He looked at her with raw honesty. "You made me stop running." Lily's breath caught. "And now?" "Now I want to build something real. Not as a billionaire, not as a widower. Just as a man trying to start again." Her eyes softened. "Then start here," she whispered, placing her hand over his heart. "With truth," he smiled faintly. "Truth, and maybe a little courage." They stood there, the air between them charged with something delicate and alive. For the first time, Lily allowed herself to hope, not the timid, fragile kind, but the kind that grows quietly in the dark, unafraid of being seen. If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Weeks turned into months. Seasons shifted. What began as gentle connection deepened into something that felt like home. Michael's company ran smoothly, even as he stepped back from public life. He spent mornings making pancakes with Ethan, afternoons volunteering at the orphan fund he'd once only funded from afar. Lily saw in him the beauty of transformation, a man choosing presence over perfection, and for Lily herself, the changes were quieter but no less powerful. She smiled more, laughed often, Her classroom walls, once filled with neutral tones, now glowed with color and art. When the children asked about her weekend, she'd grin and say, "We went to the park," never needing to name who we meant. One afternoon, as she packed up her books, Ethan came running in, excitement spilling over. "Miss Parker, Dad's planning something big, but he won't tell me what." She laughed. Maybe it's a surprise. Michael appeared a moment later, looking every bit the same man she'd met months ago, yet somehow lighter. "Ethan, go grab your coat. We'll meet Miss Parker outside." When the boy ran off, Michael stepped closer. "He's right," he said softly. "I do have something planned." Lily raised a brow. "Should I be worried?" "Only if you hate surprises." Later, they drove out of the city to a quiet hilltop overlooking the lights below. A blanket was spread out, a small picnic waiting. The breeze carried the scent of pine and promise. Michael turned to her, eyes steady. "I wanted to bring you here because this is where I said goodbye to her. Tonight I want to begin again, not to replace what I lost, but to honor what I've found." Lily's throat tightened as tears welled. "You already have," she whispered. He took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Then maybe it's time to stop being afraid of happy endings." She smiled through her tears. "Maybe it's time to believe in them again." They sat in silence, watching the city shimmer beneath the stars. Two souls stitched back together by love's quiet persistence. The next morning began with sunlight slipping through gauzy curtains, spilling warmth across Lily's face. She blinked, still half lost in the memory of last night, the way Michael had looked at her under that quiet sky, his hand trembling slightly as if afraid to believe in happiness again. She got ready for work, humming, something she hadn't done in years. But as she entered the classroom, she froze. On her desk lay a small envelope with her name written in Ethan's uneven handwriting. Inside was a single note. "Dad said love makes brave hearts. I think he's learning from you." She smiled, the kind that starts deep in the heart before it reaches the lips. For all the chaos, for all the pain, something beautiful had grown here, fragile but real. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Michael appeared at the doorway, holding a bouquet of soft white magnolias, her favorite. The children giggled, whispering to each other as he stepped inside. "Mr. Hale," she said with a mock sternness, "you're disrupting class." "Then I'll make it educational," he replied, smiling. "Today's lesson, sometimes life gives you second chances, and if you're brave enough to take them." Lily laughed softly, cheeks flushing as the children clapped. Later, after everyone had left, he walked her to the gate. The air carried the faint scent of spring rain, the streets slick with reflections. "Do you ever think," he began, "that some people are meant to meet only when they've both learned enough pain to understand love properly?" She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Yes, because then they don't take it for granted." He smiled, that rare, unguarded smile that made her heart ache in the best way. "I used to believe love was something you found once, but maybe it's something you build, brick by brick, moment by moment." Lily reached up, brushing a drop of rain from his cheek. "And maybe," she said softly, "the ones who lost the most know best how to protect it." They stood close, breaths mingling, the city's hum fading around them. It wasn't fireworks or fate. It was something quieter, like finally finding the right rhythm after a lifetime of dissonance. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like. Not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, "I felt you." Months later, the school year ended. The students ran through the halls with certificates and sticky hands from ice cream. Ethan waved from across the playground holding a small trophy. "Miss Parker! Dad's here!" Michael approached, smiling, the kind of smile that said everything without words. He carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to her. "I thought we'd celebrate," he said. "With what?" she teased. "With peace," he replied simply. "I used to measure my life in profits. Now I measure it in moments like this." They sat together on the bench watching Ethan chase bubbles that shimmered in the sun. "Do you ever think about the future?" she asked quietly. "All the time," he admitted. But now, instead of fearing it, I look forward to it. She glanced at him, warmth flooding her chest. That's all I ever wanted for you. He looked back at her, steady, certain. And what about you, Lily? What do you want? She hesitated, then smiled. Nothing more than this. The simple kind of happiness that doesn't ask for proof. The wind rustled the leaves around them, carrying laughter, sunlight, and something unspoken, the promise of healing that had finally found its home. For the first time in years, Lily didn't feel like she was waiting for life to start. It already had summer faded slowly into autumn, and the world seemed to move with a gentler rhythm. The trees along the school road wore soft shades of amber, and every evening the air smelled faintly of rain and new beginnings. Lily's life had settled into something she never thought she'd have again: peace. She still woke early, still taught her classes with care, but now there was laughter in her mornings and warmth waiting at the end of each day. Michael had begun teaching part-time at a community center, helping underprivileged kids with business skills. He said it wasn't charity, it was purpose. And every time he spoke about it, Lily saw the light in his eyes, the same one Ethan carried whenever he mentioned his mother with pride instead of sorrow. One Friday evening, they hosted a small gathering at Michael's house. Teachers, parents, children, a blend of ordinary and extraordinary moments stitched together by joy. Music hummed in the background while laughter floated through the open doors. Lily stood on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold. Michael joined her, 2 glasses of lemonade in hand. You know, he said softly, I used to think life ended the day she was gone. But now, it feels like it's only just beginning. She looked at him, her eyes tender. You didn't replace her, Michael. You honored her by choosing to live again. He smiled faintly. And you helped me remember how. They stood there for a long while, saying nothing. Beneath them, Ethan was teaching a younger child how to fold paper boats, the same craft Lily had taught him months ago. The moment felt complete, as if time itself had bowed in quiet respect. Later that night, when everyone had gone, Michael walked Lily to the gate. You've given me more than I ever deserved, he said. She shook her head, smiling. No, you just needed someone to remind you that love doesn't die. It changes form. He reached for her hand, thumb brushing gently against her knuckles. Then promise me something, he whispered. When the world tries to make you doubt again, remember that you're my reason to hope. Her eyes glistened, a single tear slipping free. And you're mine to believe again. They leaned into each other then. No grand gesture, no audience, just 2 souls meeting in quiet understanding. The kind of love that didn't need to be loud to be true. The wind stirred around them, carrying laughter, distant music, and the rustle of magnolia leaves, the same flowers that had followed their story from pain to peace. In that moment, Lily realized something profound. Love wasn't about saving someone. It was about standing beside them until they learned how to save themselves. The stars shimmered above as Michael whispered, You're home, Lily. And she smiled, not because of the words, but because for the first time in her life, she believed them. If you believe love still heals, share this story. Let it remind someone that even broken hearts can find their way home again. Tap like, not for the ending, but for the journey it took to get here. Because sometimes the quietest stories carry the loudest hope. Moral. Even after loss, love can bloom again. Not to replace what was gone, but to honor what remains. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering with peace.